Fan of the show? Never miss an episode by subscribing to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or at our website, cinemapsychoshow.com. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Psycho Show. This was the moment I realized that I had completely viewed Leprechaun 2 through the goggles of nostalgia. This was the moment. Because I'm just like, and I was incorrect there for a second. I said that he had no facial hair. He actually had facial hair in the first couple scenes. And then they move to, the leprechaun and the slave kind of looking at and leering at the daughter that the leprechaun intends to marry. And you look at his face, you're just like, why does his face look weird? The slave's face, and you're like, oh, that's right, because they took crepe hair and they basically glued it onto his face.
So is this one of those they went for reshoots and he had shaved kind of thing?
Yeah. Yes, that is exactly what it looks like. It is, and it's not a good job.
Oh, goody, goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh, my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Connington, joined by my fellow co-host and filmmaker, John Woolscroft.
He's rude. He's sick. He runs. He falls. I can't believe I saw this flick because Leprechaun 2 sucked balls.
Yeah, it kind of does. Anyway, no Lane again. What the hell, man?
Yeah, she's got to knock this shit off.
Yeah, truthfully, Lane was supposed to be here. We're in episode 207, by the way. Talk about Leprechaun 2, but I think I got to get this out of the way. Lane was supposed to be here, but unfortunately, her microphone is busted.
Is kaput.
It's kaput. So we're trying to get her back for Hannibal, because we're going to be reviewing that one in the next
really
week
that's
so.
awful.
Really that awful, Hannibal.
And, should we say happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody?
Yes. I mean, is this going to come out the week of St. Patrick's Day? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, actually it will. It will.
Yeah.
Look at the calendar right now. Yeah. So yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day. Don't go to bars because obviously that's where the vid is. So
yeah, stay home and get blackout drunk in your own home.
Blackout drunk and dressing green at home. Do that. Be socially distant in your celebrations. Also, really crazy to realize that this has been a year now since the pandemic started.
Yeah.
Remember, it was supposed to be 17 days. We're supposed to be like, we're going to flatten the curve. We're still flattening the curve.
Yeah, this could take 6 weeks. I can't believe it.
Holy crap. What am I going to do for 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Yep. We're going on a year. Yeah. But in honor of the day in which you basically, it's really just known for drinking and eating green eggs and I guess shepherd's pie. People eat shepherd's pie on this day too. A lot of Irishy foods. We thought we'd talk about probably the only real Leprechaun movie that really exists. I mean, we're not obviously talking about cereals, like Lucky Charms.
Magically delicious.
Yeah, magically delicious. But we're going to talk about Leprechaun 2. Okay? Not because we did talk about Leprechaun a while back.
Because we're culturally sensitive here at the
We seriously are.
the Cinema Psycho Show.
Why not, pull out a stereotype in movies to go ahead and review. But yeah. So we thought we would talk about Leprechaun 2 because it's one of those movies that you're just like, in your brain, you're like, oh yeah, that was a good one. At least I thought that. Okay? Until I watched it again and then realized, oh God, there's a lot of problems here. It's not as bad as, say, Leprechaun in Da Hood or Leprechaun in Da Space.
Or Leprechaun Back to the Hood.
Back to Da Hood. It's nowhere near as dumpster fire as those are, but this is where you start to see the cracks and obviously what I would call a franchise that already had some cracks to begin with. I'm not just saying that because of Jennifer Aniston's old nose is the star of the original Leprechaun. Because it is. Let's be honest here. Her old nose and her high tops are the star of that original film.
Indeed.
But, John, let me ask you this. When did you first see Leprechaun 2?
See,
remember?
I made the mistake. I thought this one was where he was in Vegas. I forgot. That's the third one.
Yeah, that's the third one. And you know what? You can also get this one confused with, at least I have a couple times. You can get this confused with Wishmaster 2. I've seen. Yeah. I've got this confused with Wishmaster. I'm like, wait, didn't that happen? No, that was Wishmaster 2. Which that one's a good movie in my opinion. But
yeah, I think I saw this like around like 6th or 7th grade when I was going on a video rental frenzy back.
Yeah,
in the
we
day.
all did that.
Yeah. And
did you do the Iggle video? Did you go to Iggle video, or did you have your own thing up north?
Well, yeah, we did have that, but my town had an abnormally large amount of video rental stores. I think we had like 3 video rental stores, and I mean it's a college town, but it's not that big. We had 3 video rental stores and Iggle video.
Yeah.
So, and then but when there was new releases, you couldn't find them at any of the stores. So,
yeah,
fuck you. Yeah.
Yeah. We had honestly we had Iggle video, and then we got once Hollywood Video opened up, which that became like holy shit, Hollywood Video's in town, and then everyone kind of flocked to that, and that killed Iggle Video, and then streaming killed Hollywood Video. So it's a cyclical cycle.
Yeah, Edinburgh got a Blockbuster like way too late because it was
really.
Yeah, like we got like
it was the Randy Marsh Blockbuster.
Kind of, yeah. We got
perfectly turnkey
because we got a Walmart. And there was this whole shopping plaza put in, and there was a Blockbuster, and I don't think Blockbuster came into like 2003, so it was like its glory days had already passed. Like there's still a couple years left, but its glory days had gone.
Blockbuster that opened in 2003.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. That's amazing. I can't imagine that they would want to open up a Blockbuster in 2003. It's like. You literally are maybe a couple years away, maybe 2 or 3 years away from just starting to, go out of business. But that's just crazy. So you watch this movie on kind of a frenzy back in the day when you kind of like rented all sorts of VHS just to watch them.
Yeah. Just like grab Leprechaun 2 and Halloween 4 and Nightmare on Elm Street 5 or, make a night of it.
You mix this and Dream Child? You watch this one and then you watch Dream Child. Jesus Christ. Oh man, you're just like going for all the stinkers.
Soul food.
Yeah, soul food for my boy. Yeah, I think I caught this one on HBO. I think I've mentioned that a couple times in the show that HBO pretty much in the 90s especially was a wasteland for movies like this. It was a wasteland. This is where HBO is where I found Troll 2. I think I mentioned that a couple times. But HBO back in the 90s, they would basically, to kind of bookend all of the expensive movies they would play on like Friday nights at 8 o'clock. Those were like the prime time ones. They would just put shit films like this. And that was what cable typically did, because these movies really didn't cost a whole lot to kind of license. They didn't have big name stars in them. And it was pretty much just like, well, we got to fill 8 hours worth of programming. So I guess throw Leprechaun 2 in there and throw Troll 2 in there, especially at nighttime. And
I hate to sound like an old man yelling at clouds, but just like MTV, like back in the day, like, HBO used to actually run movies all day before it was all original programming. Yeah.
Yeah. There was no original programming. That was pretty much it. The only original program they ever had were HBO movies. Like they literally would do a movie that HBO funded, and that would be their original program. They didn't have TV shows. That wasn't a thing back then. That it's interesting because I think an entire generation discovered movies like this mainly because HBO, Showtime, and Cinemax pretty much had to fill the time. But interesting little history there. But I discovered this, when I was a kid, and I thought it was fucking hilarious back then. Leprechaun 2, obviously it came out, what would you say, about 2 years after the first Leprechaun, because Leprechaun came out in 92, I think.
No, it came out in 93, so I think this is just like 1 year
Oh,
later.
man, yeah, you're right.
And the third one came out in 95, so they were just pumping these out.
Well, they don't take a whole lot of effort to make, I can tell you that. Although I will say that the first Leprechaun at least makes sense to some degree. That one has some level. I mean, it's fucking stupid, but it's had some level of, made sense a little bit.
It felt at least a little bit different than some of the other movies out there,
Yeah, and I mean, when we're talking about Leprechaun for the most part is, I'd say, one of the last gasps of the slasher era. We're in Bronze Age shit here at this point. If you're thinking about what the golden age and the silver age of slasher films are, I think we've already talked about that. The 70s were pretty much that was the introduction of the golden age of slasher films, and then around the mid 80s, that's when they kind of switched to the silver age, where we couldn't have it be the crazy person next door. It had to be a some kind of monster or a dream demon or some crazy person from a gold box. It had to be something that was, a demon of some kind. And then we get to this, which is just like, we're just trying to pump something out.
Yeah, because when I think slasher films, I think 1994.
Yes, everybody does. But it is just interesting that, we're basically at this point, what? Scream came out in 96?
Yeah.
So we're 2 years away from what I would call the death of the slasher film, which would be Scream. I kind of consider that the death of it. That's me, at least. Lane is not here to argue against that, so I'm taking advantage of that. But yeah, so Leprechaun 2 kind of marks that kind of we're going downhill here, and this movie is very much like that. It isn't at all related to anything that you saw in the first Leprechaun. That right there, tells me there's a problem.
Yeah, they just kind of said, well, fuck our audience. We'll just get somebody to pump out a script who's never seen the first film. We don't care about continuity. Just, they figured that people in the theater are probably stoned or trying to get a hand job in the theater anyway. So what do they care? Yeah.
Wow. You're very detailed there.
And also, by the way, Warwick Davis even said, well, why did you come back for Leprechaun 2? And he said, well, money.
I mean, yeah.
That's the only reason he's here.
That's the only reason that he did it is money. I mean, I kind of figured that. Its box office, it raked in $2.3 million, which is not a lot.
Well, it was probably what? Oh my God, this movie was a $2 million budget. What the hell do they spend the money on?
Oh, yeah. Was it a $2 million budget?
Apparently, yeah.
Was it? According to IMDb, is that what it said?
Yeah.
So they basically broke even. That's terrible. Oh, God.
Did they give $1.9 million to Warwick Davis? And just what was ever left over?
Well, the movie's called Leprechaun 2. He's the main person.
And it's not like Michael Myers or Jason where you could just recast because he didn't speak. But
he probably, you know what happened? Probably Robert Englund was like, hey, Warwick, you better get the pay date on that movie there.
Get that Leprechaun money, boy.
Get that Leprechaun money. They can't just recast you, okay? They can't. It's not possible. Years later they did. But anyway, this movie has nothing to do with the first Leprechaun. All those characters are not even included in this. It's an entirely different city. It's in Los Angeles instead of, I don't know, whatever podunk town in California they were at last time. But yeah, it opens up with us look at the past because I guess we needed that. And I'm not sure how well this whole description of this movie is going to go. But it opens up being in the past, and the Leprechaun is apparently, he really wants to settle down, 1,000 years ago, And apparently every 1,000 years, a leprechaun can choose a bride for reasons. You're a fucking leprechaun, dude. Like, why do you have to go by magic law? But
well, he has to like shine shoes like at certain points. He can't like just take his gold back. It has to be given him. So there's a lot of leprchaun rules.
You know, that would suck. That would suck. You can't do anything. You can't marry anyone. You can't fool around with anyone for 1,000 years. Apparently that's the way leprechauns work. But anyway, he's got this slave because we needed that, who, you know, he's trying to make a deal with like, hey, you know, if you get me my bride, you know, then I'll let you go. Which I'm like, you really gonna believe a little shit? I mean, he's made you a slave. What? Yeah. You gonna believe him? But anyway, you find out that the bride this leprechaun wants is actually the slave's daughter. Dun dun dun.
Yeah. What an amazing coincidence that they happen to be related.
What an amazing coincidence. And you know what else was an amazing coincidence? The fact that he had no facial hair, the slave, had no facial hair, and then in the next scene had facial hair tacked onto his face. Did you notice that one?
Oh, no.
Oh yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. So this was the moment I realized that I had completely viewed Leprechaun 2 through the goggles of nostalgia. This was the moment, because I'm just like, and I was incorrect there for a second. I said that he had no facial hair. He actually had facial hair in the first couple scenes, and then they move to, you know, the leprechaun and the slave kind of looking at and leering at the daughter that the leprechaun intends to marry, and you look at his face, you're just like, why does his face look weird? The slave's face, and you're like, oh, that's right. Because they took crepe hair and they basically glued it onto his face.
So is this one of those they went for reshoots and he had shaved kind of thing?
Yeah. Yes, that is exactly what it looks like. It is, and it's not a good job. It is not good at all. And it's really kind of funny because one of the highlights in this movie that I would say is the effects. You know, that is one of the things I would say that this movie does have some level of good in is the effects. So you're like, why the hell would you have all these good effects? Because there's a scene where, you know, obviously, you know, there's you got to have the greedy friend who tries to capture the leprechaun, and that does happen. And, you know, a pot of gold shoots out of his stomach. And it looks cool. It looks cool, but you're like, you did that, but you can't put some crepe hair on someone's face realistically? But I don't know. So somehow the slave basically manages to, I guess, screw up the union. I don't know how he did, but he apparently did.
Yeah, that was baffling to me. Like, It wasn't until Warwick Davis's leprechaun was like, yeah, you screwed me this time. And I'm like, he did?
What did he do?
Yeah.
What did he do? All he did was run away.
Yeah.
All the guy did was like say, haha, I'm running away from you. It's like, but how did that screw up? He could still get the girl, right? Like, he's a fucking leprechaun. So I don't know, but I forgot to mention this. This is important. So apparently there, again, more magic rules shit here. Okay. To be able to get the girl, the woman has to sneeze 3 times without being said, God bless you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean,
it's not
the movie's rules, you know. Like,
no, it's not. Because here's the thing: movies can have rules, and they can have things like that. Like, you know, I love the Hellraiser movies, and when I mean movies, I mean really 1, 2, and 3 to about a degree. We don't need to talk about those other ones, but those have rules. But they're not ridiculous. They're not ridiculous rules. They make sense given the plot. But the whole idea of 1, I can't marry someone for 1,000 years, and then 2, I can marry them after that 1,000 years comes, but they have to sneeze 3 times. It just, I don't know. I felt that was really bizarro and really stupid. But yeah, apparently this fucked up his whole thing. So the leprechaun curses a slave and his entire lineage, saying that in 1,000 years, I'm going to basically marry your, you know, whoever your descendant is going to be. And you're like, okay, whatever, dude, I'm dead. But
yeah, that's like my great
it's like, okay,
granddaughter. Yeah.
Okay, fine, whatever.
Hey, look, I mean, the whole sneezing thing, they got to pad the runtime. This movie's only 85 minutes. There's 5
this
minutes.
Felt really longer than 85 minutes.
I did, amazingly.
Did it feel longer to you?
There's like 5 minutes of end credits, and there's like 3 minutes of opening credits, and I'm like, how does this movie feel so long?
Yeah, the opening credits were entirely unnecessary. Entirely unnecessary. Because, basically...
padding the runtime. That's that's the whole
really
reason for it.
Because they have this whole thing where the leprechaun rolls out a scroll and he apparently has pictures drawn of every descendant of this slave. And it's all like to kind of show us that, hey, we're moving through time, which I'm just like, why couldn't you just cut to a scene saying 1,000 years later? Oh, that's right, they did. Yeah. Right after the credits. So wasn't necessary. But yeah, it kind of has this whole moving across this thing, and you see, oh, look at all the descendants that this guy has, and they all tend to look like the daughter, which doesn't happen. It's not how genes work. Like, you might have similarities, but they're not carbon copies. I hate it when movies do that, by the way. Like, every movie that I've seen that does that sort of thing, even one of my favorite movies, Bram Stoker's Dracula, pulls that shit off too. Where it's just like, yes, 1,000 years ago, you look like the same person. Genes don't work that way.
They don't want the audience confused. You know what I mean? They want to make it as simple as possible. And look, I mean, Brian, the writer of this is also the writer of Chairman of the Board with Carrot Top.
Wait a minute. I didn't know that.
Yep.
I was unaware of that. He seriously is?
Yep.
Oh, my God. That makes so much sense. Oh my God. That also is a movie that at the time I was like, oh, this is cool because I was 12.
Yeah.
and is not aged at all. Oh man, I didn't know that that guy was the writer of this. I mean, I thought Carrot Top wrote Chairman of the Board.
Well, he started to, but then he started to try to write in his prop comedy, and it just didn't work,
Are you sure? Because if you've seen Chairman of the Board, there's a lot of prop comedy in that.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, after this, overblown sequence, we finally, get a little bit of characters other than the leprechaun, because that's important. And we're introduced to forgettable girl number 1 and forgettable boy number 2.
Hey, how dare you? That young man was every Clearasil 90s commercial I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, he was the person in charge who was every, as you said, every Zit cream his face was on.
Well, dudes, I got a date tonight. I can't have pimples.
Yeah, it's Cody and Bridget. Yes, because and Cody definitely looks like he is right out of the fucking 90s. Again, this movie does not age very well. And Cody is kind of like this. I don't really know what he does. He's kind of like a carnival barker for Hollywood tours that are based around spooky shit. And that's honestly it. Like, that's his job. He's like a hustler for scary tour. Like, I guess that's it.
Well, the thing is, this ended up like what they're mocking here actually ended up becoming a real thing in Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah. It's I
mean, I know they do Star Tours, but I mean, they don't do ones.
There is a macabre one.
Is there one?
Uh-huh. Yeah, and he's working for his uncle. Is it Morty?
Is it uncle? Is he an uncle?
Yeah. He's his guardian, if nothing else. But yeah, he's like a drunken hot mess.
Oh man, yeah, he really is. I mean, he's also probably, aside from the Leprechaun, one of the most memorable characters in the entire movie. Like, aside from the Leprechaun, I think him, the Leprechaun, and then of course Michael McKean. I think he's in it as
Michael McDonald.
McDonald, that's right. Yeah. Michael McDonald, who plays the barista, are probably the only characters that are memorable in this. But yeah, so he's kind of like this barker for his uncle. We'll call him uncle. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
he's scamming Kimmy Robertson from Twin Peaks and Clint Howard.
Well, you want to know where all the money went. There you go. Clint Howard isn't cheap. Do you know who my brother is? Yes, Clint. We know who your brother is. Yeah. We know. He's Ron Howard. Yes, we know. So this was around the time that Clint Howard, I think this was maybe one year before, 1 or 2 years before he did The Ice Cream Man, which that was his own little horror franchise thing there.
Which is unwatchable.
It really is. I haven't seen it in years.
Oh.
Is it bad?
I don't even think we could do it for a pantheon of other shit.
You think it's that bad?
Oh, it's fucking unwatchable. Oh.
I mean, we've watched some Neil Breen shit, so I mean, it can't be that bad.
Yeah, but Neil Breen is almost like a flogging religious experience. You know, it's a painful religious experience.
He's making another movie, right?
God help us all. Breen help us all.
He's making another fucking movie. Yeah, but anyway, Clint Howard's in this for a whole hot second, and then what's her face, the squeaky voice girl from the 90s. That's honestly what I know her as is
Agent Cooper.
Yes. Basically, Twin Peaks, Agent Cooper, but she was also in UHF. With Weird Al as Weird Al's girlfriend. But yeah, he's basically conning these people into this hearse, which he actually does a okay job at, and I mean that the script allows him to con them, because I think I would just say, I'm not doing this. You sound like a con artist, and move on. But apparently these tourists are stupid. And then it cuts to introducing Uncle Morty, who, as you said, is a drunk.
Well, don't forget, we get in. We need to mention Siobhan Durkin, who they're supposed to go on a date.
That's right.
Who plays Bridget? Apparently, they offered this role to Heather Langenkamp. So
they did.
Yeah, and Denise Richards was also supposed to be in it, but I guess she wanted to go make Tammy and the T-Rex.
I was going to say this was around the same time they made Tammy and the T-Rex.
But she had both of these scripts and went, I'll go with the dinosaur one.
Well, I could be in Leprechaun 2, or I could be in the dinosaur one. Dinosaur one sounds like a better part. I mean, she might not have been wrong on that one.
But old Siobhan here, she goes from being acceptable as an actress to unspeakably horrible, sometimes in the same sentence.
Can you give me an example?
Like if like the line is like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll go on a date some other time." It'll be like, "Well, don't worry, we'll go on a date some other time." And it's like, whoa. You went, you screwed up in the same sentence. Like, how did you go from like 0 to shite like that?
Yeah. They. And honestly, like they don't give her much to do in this movie at all. Past maybe the first 20 minutes.
I hate to say this, but that's how Hollywood worked back then, and probably still does. They cast her for her tits.
Those aren't her tits, by the way.
Oh,
shit. Here's the reason why I say that.
Did she have a tit double?
I think she had a tit double. Because and I was wondering that when that scene happened. Okay, so this is jumping it forward a little bit here. Okay, so somewhere in the movie, I'd say, what would you say, about 15 minutes into the movie, we get our first real kill.
Well, okay? Brian, I feel we can just fill everybody because this movie isn't too complicated.
No, it's not.
He can't go on the date because Morty gets drunk and can't run the tour, so he has to run the tour. She goes with him, but then she leaves when they get to the go-kart park, and then his rival is like, "Don't worry, babe, I'll take you on the go-karts," and she's like, "Oh, I'm not going to date you anymore, Cody, because this guy's going to give me what I want."
His go-kart.
Yeah. And then eventually this other guy takes her home. He tries to get laid. She socks him in the gut. He feels bad. She goes to her house, and he suddenly sees her in the garage, and he's so horny he doesn't question the fact that she somehow
I never understood that
appeared there suddenly. Audience, now you're caught up. Sorry. Yeah. I'm used to good. Here's the thing. I'm used to somewhat decent films to be able to kind of like run through the plot a little bit more. But you're absolutely right, John.
there's only so much with Leprechaun 2. So why not we get to the good parts here?
Yeah,
so,
this ain't old Chucky Foster Kane, you know. I mean, I think we can move a little forward.
Yeah, but this is a common trope that you see in slasher movies where, yes, the guy gets, so enamored with the illusion, and then whoever the monster is kind of kills him based off of that. It happens in nearly every single Nightmare on Elm Street film, and it happened here too, where he sees her trying to undress, and the reason why I say that I don't think that's really her there is they never cut to her head. They never ever cut to her head, and you never see her like from her head all the way down to her midsection. It's always just the titties and then her head. The titties and then her head. So that's why I think it was a tit double.
That's gotta be a weird thing in Variety or Hollywood Magazine.
Well, what did you do in Leprechaun 2? Well, I was boob double.
Yeah,
I was boob double.
And if you were the boob double for this movie, contact us at cinemapsychoshow.com. Let us know. And,
that would be really interesting to interview someone who that was their job. Yes, I mean they call it body double. But yes, I was a tit double. Wouldn't you be disappointed to find out that like Michael Fassbender's really had a body double?
Oh, no.
That
not my
ruined
Wiener
your whole
King.
thing. Your what?
Not my Wiener King.
The Wiener King. How did they do it? Well, we just basically motion captured him walking, and it
cost $20 million.
Yeah. But anyway, getting back to the boobies situation here. The moron sees the titties, goes towards them, and then of course we see that it's actually a lawnmower that he's putting his face into.
Yeah, old Leprechaun here is using magic tricks on him, and he thinks that it's a lady, but it's a lawnmower blade, 2 lawnmower blades. Yeah,
that's right. And then we don't see that; we just see the blood, which. Good for you, movie. I'll give you that one. I'm actually a fan of doing what they did, which I wish most filmmakers would do.
I don't think they did it for the right reasons, though. I think they did it because they didn't have the money to create like a Savini head that they could chop up.
But that's fine. Honestly, that's okay. I'm okay with that. It's, again, the idea that if you can't do it properly, don't show it. Okay? Because in my mind, I imagined exactly what was happening. Even though it's a shitty film, and don't get me wrong, Leprechaun 2 is a shitty film. In that regard, they were right to do that. If they had just, a shitty Savini face and just kind of smash that into would you need that? Not really. Does it add anything to it? Not really. Having the shadow and the blood splat, that's good enough. And it gives me enough to fill in the gaps as I'm watching it. So, good on you, Leprechaun 2, for doing that. I don't know why you could do that, and then, of course, put fake, crappy crepe hair on someone's face. But, priorities. So, yeah, after that, our boy Cody shows up, not really realizing that there's a dead person in the garage, and he shows up at Bridget's house. And, they kind of rekindle things. And she's like, oh, well, I always would have been with you. And, of course, that's when the Leprechaun starts to put his moves on Bridget and make her sneeze 3 times. And then the Leprechaun just fucking shows up in the house.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, if this had been Lane, not to call her out, but she sneezes in multiples. I think she said her record is 13 in a row.
Are you serious?
So, yeah. So if Leprechaun had chosen Lane, by the time she was done sneezing, she would have been pregnant.
and looking like a leprechaun, because apparently later in the movie we find out that even though the leprechaun wants a woman who like is fair skinned and looks pretty and everything like that, he actually wants her to turn into like a gross turd like him.
Yeah, obviously, it doesn't make any sense on paper, but it's because they wanted a hot chick so people could go, no, she's pretty, don't, But then it's also he wants her to look like a leprechaun. Yeah. Oh, by the way, guys, this movie does take place on St. Patrick's Day, which is kind of a nice novelty. Unlike the first one, this actually does take place on St. Pat.
Well, they had to get one thing right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to get one thing right. I'm surprised he didn't pull that whole, like, the leprechaun's only around for St. Patrick's Day, and, like, if you wait it out for the day to end, then he disappears.
Oh,
like
yeah.
most movies do, like Halloween movies. Every Halloween film, I'm not going to talk about, like, Michael Myers. I'm talking about just movies set around Halloween, and they have some sort of monster. They always are like, wait out the holiday, and then they'll go away. Like Night of the Demons, which is one of my favorites in terms of bad films. You know, they do that same thing where it's, if you wait it out, everything is fine. They all disappear, go back to whatever hell they came from. But they didn't do that with this one. It just so happened to be St. Patrick's Day. But yeah, Leprechaun kidnaps Bridget and transports her to his cave inside of a tree. It's kind of like a Doctor Who type cave where, if you're familiar with Doctor Who, he has a TARDIS and you open up, it's bigger on the inside. That's kind of like what his cave is. It's a gigantic mishmash of, you know, paper mache and
it's like some Harry Potter shit, like, here, step into my suitcase. And you're like, but that's a suitcase, but it's magical. And it's like a whole
well, that's what I said. It's Doctor Who style stuff. Yeah. My British friends will understand that. They'll get it. They're like, yes, that's right. But, you know, this kind of kicks off Cody having to rescue Bridget, but he has to find his Uncle Morty first for reasons. And then, of course, the police think that he killed, the asshole in the garage because his hanging. He's now hanging from the door, the front door. I don't know how the leprechaun had the time to do all this stuff.
Yeah. How did he get him hanging from his feet? Like,
he literally had him hanging from his feet in the front door.
It reminds me of the shot in the original Halloween film, and I mean that shot was unbelievable. But at least I could say, okay, well, at least Michael's like 5'10".
Yeah,
you know, like he could maybe manage that. But quick note here: one of the things, the reason the leprechaun spends his entire movie chasing Clearasil and his drunken uncle is.
That's what we're gonna call him, Clearasil Cody.
Yeah, Clearasil Cody is like he just has like a skateboard and it's got that like choppy shutter that like those commercials had, like, whoa, look, dude, like looking right into the camera lens. But it's because one of his coins like slipped into this kid's hand and he desperately wants his gold back. And that's what keeps him from, you know, just going and knocking up his baby mama.
Yeah, because apparently the leprechaun really can't have any piece of his gold taken, which I'm just like, you could, you know, I have earrings in my ear, and the other day I lost one of them, you know, and I'm just like, I don't know where the fuck it's at. So he's trying to track down one gold piece for the entire movie. He's obsessed with it. Becomes more obsessed with that than the girl he just kidnapped.
It's the only explanation on why he just doesn't go and take the lady to Pound Town, you know?
I mean, wouldn't you want to do that first? Like, could you, like, put the gold aside? You waited 1,000 years, actually 2,000 years, because the first time around he couldn't do it. So you're waiting 2,000 years, 2 millennia, to find a wife, knock her up, create little baby leprechauns that apparently, you know, you have to do to morph your wife's face to look like you, which is kind of weird because leprechauns won't suckle. He actually says that they won't suckle if they don't look like you. You know, so. You know, you have to do that. Wouldn't you maybe do that first and then go after your gold piece? Maybe. Priorities, man. But that doesn't happen. We instead get, this kind of Looney Tunes-esque chase and kind of dance between the leprechaun and Clearasil Cody and Uncle Morty. And it's always in the weirdest sort of setting. So, like, the first time you see them, they're at a bar. And apparently, the leprechaun could just like stroll right in to the bar and drink. There's no big deal. Like literally, the leprechaun is sitting at the bar. Uncle Morty is right next to him.
Well, there are other little people there,
but his fucking face literally looks like a prolapsed anus.
Well, they probably think it's like makeup, you know, like some kind of like
a prolapsed anus face.
Well, it actually is makeup, on Warwick Davis, so it's possible. But we also just get a nice cameo from Tony Cox from Bad Santa.
Yes. He shows up, and he's actually like the weirdest actor in this. Like, he has the weirdest performance, because I actually thought for a minute that he was the Leprechaun in disguise. Like, I thought that it was like the Leprechaun kind of changed his shape, because he walks in, he's like, "Take my gold," and he's just got this face of like, "Take my gold, it's
Take
chocolate."
my gold. Yeah,
and it's just really weird. Like they said, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think they're desperately trying to like draw attention to that scene because it pays off in the end.
Yeah, in the most dumb fucking way possible. Which, honestly, I doubt the credibility of the Leprechaun entirely by that scene. That we'll get to. But anyway, yeah. So Clearasaur Cody ends up being in the bathroom. Tony Cox shows up. He takes one gold piece, which is really just chocolate covered, gelt. If you're of the Jewish, faith, you know what gelt is. It's that nasty chocolate you get around Hanukkah. But he's got the gold piece in his pocket, I guess, for reasons. And he comes back and he sees Uncle Morty, and he's staring down at the Leprechaun, who's just giving him this look of like, "I'm going to murder you," And it's mainly because he's got that gold piece. He wants it back. So Uncle Morty, who we mentioned before, he's a fucking alcoholic, okay, decides to challenge the fucking Leprechaun to drinking contest.
But here's the thing about Morty. He was clever enough, because earlier in the movie, like, he's given a shot and he spits it out, and the guy says, "It's like, cola and something else because you've had too much to drink," and so while he's challenging him to the drinking contest, like, Uncle Morty's not even drinking any booze.
Yes.
And the Leprechaun apparently just goes, "Yeah, all right, I'll do this."
He's like, "You challenge me, drink?" It's like, "Yes, I challenge your drink." And the Leprechaun gets fucking blasted.
Yeah. And the thing is, this scene takes about like 12, 13 minutes, and the scene after at a coffee shop takes about another 5, 6, 7 minutes. Has no impact on the movie at all.
No. It's really just for shock value. I mean, that's really what it is. And I think it sets up that whole coffee shop scene, which most people, when they think of Leprechaun 2, they think of that coffee shop scene and another one, and I'll get to that one. They think of this coffee shop scene with, as we mentioned, Michael McDonald from Mad TV. You also might remember him as the security guard in Austin Powers, who kept screaming "No!" as he was going to get run over.
Move! Move!
Yeah. You might remember him as that guy. He was very popular in the 90s. And this was, I think, before his whole Mad TV stint.
Yeah, before Stewart.
But yeah, he plays a barista. And this is after the Leprechaun is, got completely blasted, so he decides to go to a coffee shop. He's just sitting there, and Michael McDonald just comes in and starts like making fun of him and, calling him short people, making fun of him, the fact he's dressed like a leprechaun because he is a leprechaun. And, is just saying, "Hey, you got to get out of here." And he's like, you want me pot of gold, do you? And of course, Michael McDonald's like, "Oh, yes, gold, MasterCard, Visa, we'll take all of that. We'll just you got to get out." And the Leprechaun basically melts his face with an espresso machine.
By the way, Brian, I'm pretty sure I know exactly what the direction given to Michael McDonald was.
What do you think it was?
Go nuts.
Go nuts? You think it was go nuts?
Just do whatever. Yeah, just do whatever you want.
You don't think it was act like a early 90s asshole?
I think they just basically said, you just do your Michael McDonald thing.
What do you think this would be? What do you think this would be, Michael? What's your notes on this?
You don't have any instruction for me? Nah, just go.
Nah, just go nuts.
The camera's already rolling, idiot. So film ain't cheap,
Film ain't cheap. This is before digital, so yeah.
But I also love that every character in this movie that dies has to be introduced as the biggest asshole on the planet, just so somehow we don't feel bad.
Except for Clearasaur Cody, he doesn't get a death because he's virtuous.
Yeah,
right?
He's our hero. He and Bridget don't. But yeah, everybody and they're always so forced into the plot, like this coffee shop owner where it's like, oh, the leprechaun has to sober up and there's a coffee shop owner and he's a dick and now he's dead because we have to have a certain body count. You know,
I think it's also because they're trying to do the Nightmare on Elm Street type thing where you kind of root for Freddy. I think some people root for Freddy. I root for Freddy, but that's just me. But it's like we want the Leprechaun to really fuck over those people. Like, yeah, good for you, buddy. You shouldn't be kidnapping girls, but one less asshole.
But what this movie didn't have that like so many of those movies have, it's like, you get like Friday the 13th part, not like 90, and you get introduced to like your main male and your main female, but then they have like, oh, and here's our 9 friends. I'm like, okay, there's his body count. This movie didn't have that, so they just had to introduce like some guy walks in off the street and goes, "You're small," kicks him in the face, so then like Leprechaun bites his balls off or something. Like.
Yeah.
You're introducing the movie just to die 30 seconds later.
Pretty much. Yeah. Speaking of 30 seconds later death, we get probably, I would say, what is the second best death scene in this, and what I think most people remember this one for, aside from the barista killing, and that's Uncle Morty being fucking dumb.
Yeah, well, I mean, Uncle Morty is a con artist who never met a grift he didn't want to do.
Yeah. But come on, like here's the thing. The part I have a problem with Uncle Morty's arc, if we want to call it that, is mainly that Uncle Morty doesn't believe leprechauns exist. And then he sees that leprechauns exist and is able to outsmart the leprechaun, but then his own dumbass greed is actually his downfall in this, because he again thinks he can outsmart the leprechaun. Okay? So what am I talking about? Well, after this whole barista scene happens, the Clearasaur, Cody, and Uncle Morty realize that the leprechaun has a weakness when it comes to cast iron. He can't handle cast iron. I would just go down and get yourself a lodge pan at that point and just, go in a leprechaun beating melee. But instead of doing that, we got to go the hard route, because the movie directs us to, and that's to come up with this bizarro plan that takes place back at the go-kart rink, because we were shown before that the go-kart owner, that one who's dead by the titties, he had a giant cast iron safe. So the idea is... Well,
also, Brian...
did I miss something?
Well, yeah, it's because it's a location they had.
That's right. I forgot.
We got this for 3 days, so we're going to shoot this scene in here, too.
That's right. I forgot. Anyway, they have this convoluted plan that they're going to lure the leprechaun there and then trap him in the safe. Okay? Which, it actually works.
It's surprisingly, a nice setup. It's a nice setup because there's a doggy door that the leprechaun jumps through in the safe.
Of course he jumps through a fucking doggy door.
Right. Because take that, little people. Yeah.
That's right.
It's we get introduced to the dog and the doggy door and the safe being there. So they actually do set this up.
They set it up.
Yeah.
Something Neil Breen does not know how to do. This filmmaker apparently did. Yeah. See, we could knock on chairman of the board all we want, okay? But at least he wrote in things that were going to pay off, okay? But yeah, the leprechaun gets fucking trapped, and we're like, yay, something worked. But sure enough, Uncle Morty has to be the fucking asshole that he is, because remember you said, John, just a few minutes ago, that this movie punishes assholes, and Uncle Morty's an asshole because he tries to say, okay, well, I capture you, now you got to give me that gold.
Yeah. Give me, he wants 3 wishes, and then
I want my 3 wishes.
His first one is vindictive as hell, It's like, I want your gold just to be an asshole.
I want your gold. You give me that gold. I want my 3 wishes. And he's like, you want to be gold, do you? And he gets the gold. I mean, he does. Because that's the way the leprechaun works. It's the same way that the djinn works in Wishmaster. Where you get the wishes, but it's always like not exactly what you want.
Yeah, why would anybody ever ask a leprechaun for 3 wishes if he's just like, it's not even like monkey paw clever where, it's like, oh, how ironic that like this is how it turned out. It's like, no, he just puts the gold in his guts. Like that's not clever. It's just, I'm surprised he didn't just have the gold appear and just smash him over the head until he was dead. Like, that's just as clever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, you could have just, like, had his brain explode and gold coins came out.
Yeah.
You know? Or, I mean, honestly, what would have been funnier is if they had him fill up with the gold. Like, he got all, like, kind of exploded, kind of like in Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, yeah.
Where the guy, like, fills up. Like, they could have had something like that where he kind of fills up like a balloon full of all the gold pieces and he explodes and all the gold pieces go everywhere. But instead, we get what I would honestly say is a pretty good effect. Okay?
At
and
first.
it is that he fills up with the pot of gold in his stomach, it kind of moves out of his stomach. You actually can see the outline of it. And he's like, my second wish is that he gets it out of him. Which I'm like, again, what do you think the leprechaun's going to do? You think he's going to listen to you? You think he's
Use precise wording. Yeah,
his precise wording was, get it out of me. Okay. So he cuts it out. And this is, of course, actually, I was wrong. That's his third wish. His second one is that he lets the leprechaun out of the safe, which, here's my question about this whole thing. So how is the leprechaun even able to do magic if he's in the fucking safe?
Yeah. Why doesn't he just...
Because he's surrounded on all sides by that cast iron shit. So shouldn't he not be able to do any magic while inside of that, safe?
Oh, well, Brian, I asked the director here real quick, and he gave me a quote. Let me make sure I pull it up here real quick. Because fuck you.
Oh, okay. I mean, I didn't want to say that, but I mean, I figured that might be the answer there. But yeah, so that happens. Leprechaun, basically gets out. Clearasaw Cody is locked, by the way, in a closet when this happens, watching the whole thing happen. And of course, the Leprechaun escapes. Now everyone thinks that Clearasaw Cody killed Morty.
They think that he's killed everybody.
They think he's killed everybody because that's how police works in Los Angeles. Is yes, you were found at the scene of a crime. You must be the one who killed him. Yeah. You must. Everybody thinks you did over the course of an hour. But anyway, Cody decides he's going to grab a single bar of cast iron and he's going to go to where the leprechaun's at inside of his little house in a tree. And then we get the last section of the movie, which the last section of the movie is kind of, it's kind of a mess. Like, I thought it was a mess. Did you think it was a mess?
Oh, yeah. And you could tell the director here.
He's just giving up.
Well, he's done like The Office and other things. So he has? Rodman Flender. So he's done some other stuff, but that's been better than this. But
that sounds like a porn director's name, by the way.
Yeah, right. But it felt like he was trying to channel like Alien 3 David Fincher with like, like using the camera's perspective, kind of like following shots and shit like that in the hallway corridors. But yeah, it's basically just a continuous chase plus skeleton fight scene.
Yes. Yeah, there's a skeleton fight scene that because you find out that slave actually ended up becoming the skeleton inside of the leprechaun's house, and he reanimates it, which does it in the most House on Haunted Hill manner, where it's just literally him flailing the skeleton around. Just flail your arms around like he's killing you. That's an Ed Wood reference if you didn't get that.
We didn't get the motor of the octopus.
we don't have the octopus motor. So flail around and act like he's killing you. But yeah, he beats the skeleton, of course, because it's just a skeleton. And then we get this kind of weird chase, which this was a kind of common thing that I think a lot of movies of this time period did, where they would do this whole misdirection thing where you wander around the maze and you end up back at the same place. Like, I know Nightmare on Elm Street, I think it was part 4, did the same sort of deal, where Alice would kind of move around and be like, okay, so be right back. And then, of course, she moves around someplace, comes back to the same place. Like, oh, how did I get back here? This was just
a time loop.
Yeah, it was a time loop. It was to kind of show that, the laws of physics don't work right here, which, like, no shit. You entered into a tree, and now you're in a giant, large, cavernous area. What do you think's going to happen? But this, again, kind of just fills up time, because he's trying to rescue Bridget with this, and the way that it ends up working is that Cody realizes that as long as he's got that gold piece, and we didn't mention this, as long as he's got that gold piece, the Leprechaun can't hurt him.
Yeah, because he had old Coates here has to like hand it over.
He has to
him.
hand it over.
Yeah, the Leprechaun can't just take it back.
There's a lot of stupid fucking rules in this movie. Can't marry someone for 1,000 years. You have to marry someone who sneezes 3 times. I can't kill you if you steal my 1 gold piece. A bunch of dumb fucking rules, okay? And, of course, there has to be a moment in this movie, just like the same thing happens in Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. Okay, where the Leprechaun has to trick Clearasil Cody, and Clearasil Cody obviously is not the brightest crayon in the box, okay? He's only gotten so far off of his somewhat wits. And
hey, this kid has jizz up to his eyelids, okay? He's not thinking straight.
He has jizz up to his eyeballs. He's like, I want to bang that Bridget. But the Leprechaun kind of imitates Bridget, looks like Bridget, and says, "Oh, you have to give me that gold piece. It's the only way we can stop him." And of course, Clearasil gives the gold piece because, hot girl asked me for something. And, of course, turns back into the Leprechaun. It's like, well, yeah, duh. Yeah. Kind of saw that one coming, dude.
Considering, too, she was like, come on, just give it to me. Just hand it over to me.
Just hand it
over.
No
big deal. I don't know why I care so much about this coin all of a sudden.
Yeah, she didn't even know really about the coin for the entire time. And then suddenly she's an expert on the coin, says, we have to get out. Give me the coin. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, would she even know about the coin?
No! No, she didn't. She didn't know shit about the coin.
He should be like, hey, wait a minute. How
did I tell you about the coin? I didn't tell you about the coin.
Well, just give it to me and you can do butt stuff. Oh, okay.
Oh, God. That's horrible. But anyway, of course, she turns into the Leprechaun because that was the fake out. And you're like, oh, God, now the Leprechaun's going to kill you because the rule has been, fulfilled. Only, because Clearasil Cody is only eyeball length full of jizz and not the entire head. He remembered that he got that chocolate gold piece from Tony Cox in the bathroom and held on to it, and that's what he gave the Leprechaun. Now, here's a funny thing about that, and I never understood this. So, he gave the Leprechaun a half-eaten piece of gold chocolate candy. Yeah. Because in the bathroom, he took a bite out of it.
Yeah, why would you do that in a filmmaking sense? Like, just
why would the Leprechaun not know that is what he gave him? Like, the Leprechaun's been able to, actually, he's been fucking dumb this entire movie. For someone who's supposed to be, able to outsmart you and outdo things, he's been really fucking stupid in this whole movie. So I guess it does fit kind of with his MO of being fucking stupid and kind of hellbound by rules. But, yeah, I just never understood. He took a bite of that chocolate, so it's half eaten, and he just gives him that, and that's apparently enough to satisfy the Leprechaun? I don't know. It's a tiny thing, and I know the director's going to say, fuck you. But anyway, I'm trying to criticize this movie, and we've done a good job of that up till this point.
He would also say, look, all of our checks cleared, and that's all we cared about.
That's right. So, of course, Cody actually has the gold piece, and, he's able to destroy the Leprechaun with it.
Well, yeah, because he throws, the wrought iron through his chest.
Oh, that's right. He throws the wrought iron.
And somehow that's going to cause him to explode. He's got a bad case of gas, I guess. Because he's like, he's going to blow.
He's going to blow.
Bridget or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he blows the fuck up. And thankfully now they know the way out because they need to.
Yes. Well, I think it was one of those things where because the Leprechaun, he did get blown up, that it opens up the real door because obviously it was pretty much hidden by magic. But
But there is only one hallway that actually leads to the exit, so they're just lucky they went down the right one.
That's correct.
But, it just the leprechaun blows up, and then our two lovebirds live happily ever after. He throws the coin down in the dirt. But here's the problem with these kind of movies. Cody is wanted by the police for about 5 murders.
Yeah. And all of his evidence just got blown up.
Yeah. It wasn't me, officer.
It wasn't me. It was the fucking leprechaun. Okay, sure, buddy. You're going to get the chair.
Yeah. Tell that to the cop from earlier in the movie who was the dad from Back to the Future 2.
He was the dad from Back to the Future 2, wasn't he?
Yeah, when Marty goes into his house, but it's not his house anymore.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But that's Leprechaun 2. This movie's terrible. And don't watch it.
But I think that they either ran out of money and didn't shoot it, or they shot it and destroyed the film reel, because the movie ends so suddenly that I think that they either had something and didn't shoot it, or they ruined the film and they just had to cut it right there, because it's clearly not where it was supposed to end. I think it was supposed to cut to the dirt where he throws the coin down, and just a la the Friday the 13th, Jason Goes to Hell, Leprechaun's hand was supposed to come up and grab the coin or something.
I was going to say, that's the sort of move you would see in a movie like this at this time period, is kind of that set you up for the sequel. Haha, you blew up this leprechaun, but there's another one, or it's the same one. I honestly think, because I think the first one blew up too. I don't remember how the first one ended, but I'm pretty sure the leprechaun died in it, because that's kind of what they do in these movies. But in all these types of movies where they get blown up, I really think it's multiple leprechauns. I don't think it's the same one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's how they're getting away with it.
I think you just excused this entire movie's universe.
I think I did. It's multiple leprechauns. It's not the same one. They just all happen to look like Warwick Davis.
Well, I read online that when they couldn't get Jennifer Aniston back for the second one, they kind of just scrapped the idea of a straight sequel and just kind of came up with a fresh story. So
okay, so I've basically solved the giant plot hole here.
You did more than they did, yeah.
I did more. Where's my check at?
It's kind of like the Terminators come off an assembly line, just every leprechaun looks and sounds like Warwick Davis.
Yes, they all do. This movie wasn't hard to watch. It definitely kept me in it, but it was just the nostalgia kind of burnt off on it.
There was enough silliness, and it was competently shot enough that it wasn't torturous. It certainly wasn't quality, but
no. And it's definitely dated. It's definitely a movie that is a product of its time. You watch this and it's definitely 1993 or 93 when they shot it. But it's not as good as you remember. Let's just put it that way. If you watch this movie as a kid, I watched this movie when I was a kid and I thought it was great. It's not that good. Okay. It's one of those movies that does not get well with age. It actually just exposes a lot of problems. Yeah. So, John, your final thoughts on Leprechaun?
It's a movie.
It's a movie. It's all downhill from here. That's really what it is it gets worse. It gets worse from here. We get, in Vegas, into Hood, in space, into Hood 2.
And the thing is, we'll probably end up next year on St. Pat's Day doing Leprechaun 3, but I think we should just skip and go right to the one in space.
That might. I honestly, I think we should do an episode that is on horror movies that go to space.
Oh.
Because Hellraiser did that. Hellraiser did that with Bloodlines. They went to space. Leprechaun did that. I don't think. Oh, and Jason X. Jason X is also in space. That'd be a good episode. Let us all know, folks, if you like that idea of doing a kind of a retrospective of horror movies that go to space.
Hell, Alien did it right away.
That's not the case. That's not the same. I think for a space horror movie, especially the type we're talking about, it has to be they originated on Earth and then somehow over the course of sequels ended up going to space as a gimmick. Because Alien has always been in space.
Is Moonraker a horror movie?
That's a James Bond movie.
Oh, darn.
Darn. Yeah. But that might be an idea down the line.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, have a happy St. Patrick's Day. Please do not get too drunk. And, John, where can they find you at on the Twitter machine?
The Unreal J Wolves.
You can also find me at Brian Coddington. I was on the Psycho Show page. Be sure to check out our Patreon. If you want to support the show, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Psycho Show. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Psycho Show. You can also find us on the Epicast Network at epicastnetwork.com. If you have a favorite movie or quest you want to throw our way, or you're Warwick Davis or the director of Leprechaun 2, and you want to pay me because I just solved your plot point problem by saying that all the leprechauns are different, you can contact us at cinemapsychoshow.com. And be sure to subscribe to us wherever you listen to audio, and we will see you next time.
Good night, sweet princes.
Epicast.